Hey, today I'm excited to share a funny 7-move win, even against master-level players. It happens in the Scotch Gambit, starting with pawn to d4. Let's jump in. Black accepts the pawn, and then you play this unusual-looking move, knight to g5. After you move your knight to g5, your main goal is to target the vulnerable f7 pawn, the weakest point in black's position early in the game. If black doesn't respond properly, your next move will be bishop to c4, reinforcing the pressure on f7. With both your knight and bishop eyeing this critical square, you're threatening a devastating attack that can lead to a fast victory. Recognizing the danger, most players with the black pieces will try to shut it down early by playing pawn to h6, challenging your knight. But this is exactly what you want. When black plays pawn to h6, you immediately sacrifice your knight by capturing the pawn on f7. This forces the black king to come out into the open, a dangerous decision so early in the game. Then you follow up with bishop to c4, delivering a check and kickstarting your offensive. Now the king is exposed, unable to castle, and your rapid development gives you a strong attacking initiative. Most opponents will struggle to defend from here. Surprisingly, in this position, statistics show that most players move their king back to e8, which is a big mistake. You can then play queen to h5, and it leads to checkmate in just 5 moves, similar to the scholar's mate. The funny part? It works even against expert-level opponents. I checked the database again, and this line is especially effective against players rated under 2,000, so if you're in that range, this opening could be a deadly weapon. To sum it up, you draw out the king, give a check with your bishop, the king retreats, and then queen to f7 seals the deal. Black is nearly checkmated already. Now, if the black king moves to d6, you could play bishop to f4 check, but an even faster and stronger move is pawn to h5. This leads to checkmate in just a few moves. It's insane how effective it is. For example, if black captures with the knight, then you simply play queen to d5 check. The king is forced to move, and then queen takes on e5 is checkmate? Let's try another option. If the king captures the bishop instead, you still have multiple winning ideas. One of my favorites is playing bishop to f4 check, forcing the king forward, and then pawn to f3, just because delivering checkmate with a pawn feels incredibly satisfying. If black makes a final attempt to escape to the queen side, you simply go queen to d5, and the hunt ends quickly. It's still checkmate. So that's how you can win in just a few moves out of one of the most popular opening lines. It might look like a gimmicky trap at first, but the statistics show that most opponents fall for it, even strong ones. So here we're checking the Lichess database to see how this plays out in real games. After knight to c6, we continue with pawn to d4. On the right side, you'll see a chart showing the most played moves, starting with pawn takes d4. Now, instead of the usual Scotch Gambit moves like knight to d4, bishop to c4, or pawn to c3, you go straight for knight to g5. And the majority of players respond with pawn to h6, and most of them end up losing, which is great for us. Some also try bishop to e7, which we'll cover shortly. Others play knight to f6, but that's also a mistake. After knight to f6, you simply play bishop to c4, and now black is already in trouble because the f7 pawn is under heavy pressure. So knight to f6 doesn't really help. That's something we've already looked at. The most common move by far is pawn to h6. And if they play that, you simply capture the f7 pawn with your knight. The king takes, then you play bishop to c4 with check, and just look at this. The overwhelming majority of players respond with king to e8, which leads to a forced checkmate in 5 moves. That's pretty hilarious and shows just how powerful this line is. By the way, Lichess still labels this as just the Scotch game. It doesn't recognize this specific variation. Now let's break down another line. We've already seen that king to e8 loses quickly. Let's look at what happens in some of the other common responses. So, what if the king goes to e7 instead? In that case, you don't checkmate immediately, but you gain long-term attacking chances. The king is awkwardly placed and blocks black's own pieces, which gives you plenty of compensation. Here, I recommend either pawn to c3 or castling. Both are solid options. You're not rushing to checkmate, you're setting up a lasting attack. These quiet, developing moves help you open up the center and bring your pieces into play. If black doesn't capture on d4, you'll take it yourself and gain strong central control. If they do capture on c3, you recapture with the knight. Now there's a powerful threat of knight to d5 check. Usually, black plays knight to f6 to stop that, but you go knight to d5 anyway. And while it's possible to defend here, in practical games, black nearly always goes wrong because defending this position is extremely difficult under pressure. In real games, what usually happens next is that black captures on d5. You recapture, and now you're threatening queen to f7 checkmate again. The only way for black to cover that square is by playing queen to e8, but that runs into another crushing blow. Bishop to g5, checking the king, and at this point, black is completely lost. After pawn takes the bishop, you recapture with the queen and begin the final attack. Once the king moves to d6, you can almost checkmate by castling queenside, which is not only powerful, but also incredibly beautiful. Now your rook gives a check, and mate follows in just a couple of moves. It's a stunning and unexpected way to finish the game. Now let me quickly address the elephant in the room. Yes, someone will probably point out that Stockfish says black is technically winning here, and that's true. But ask yourself this, can you actually find that winning line over the board? Probably not, and that's exactly why this opening works so well. In practice, it's incredibly hard for your opponent to survive. Let me show you what Stockfish recommends as the best defense. The engine doesn't suggest king to e8 or king to e7. Instead, it gives a surprising line, pawn to d5, sacrificing the pawn. Then, after you capture with the bishop, the king boldly steps forward to g6. Yes, you heard that right. Black gives up a pawn and moves the king into the open. These are engine-level Magnus Carlsen-type moves. And let's be honest, unless your opponent is specifically prepared for this rare line, they're not going to find these defensive resources in a real game. This gambit is so obscure it doesn't even have a name yet. So again, don't get me wrong. Yes, this is a risky opening, and if you're playing for your life or your house, maybe skip it. But in casual games or fast blitz matches, this line works like magic. In practical play, it wins 9 out of 10 times. All right, let me show you another practical and interesting line. What if your opponent avoids playing pawn to h6 and instead develops their bishop to attack your knight? It seems logical. They're developing a piece and attacking at the same time, but guess what? You sacrifice the knight anyway. King takes the knight, bishop to c4 check. It's all still standard so far. Now once again, most opponents will try to retreat the king to safety with king to e8. If they don't, you still have strong long-term compensation since their king is exposed and can't castle. But usually they go king to e8, and here comes a funny twist. You play queen to h5. At first, this move may look pointless, just hoping for king to f8 so you can checkmate. But black thinks they can shut everything down with pawn to g6. Then, boom, you play queen to d5, threatening queen to f7 checkmate. And suddenly, black is in big trouble. While Stockfish or Magnus Carlsen might find the right defense here, your usual online opponent almost never will. From the database, players either go knight to h6, which loses instantly after you capture it with your bishop, or they try knight to e5, which only delays the loss. You take the knight, and now you're attacking the rook, the king is wide open, and you can grab the central pawn soon. It's just a completely winning position. I hope you understand all these variations. If you think this video is helpful for you, then like and subscribe for more chess tutorial. Thanks for watching.